All right, so things have been pretty quiet on the WB front, but we've got two tangential stories that broke Wednesday that I think are worth covering. First off, some people are asking me what I think of Trump's vague threat to tariff all movies 100%. That's really bad. That could technically destroy almost the entire Hollywood media structure in a worst case scenario. Like, the companies would drop like flies, but it's also so vague and so big that I'm going to go over that in more detail in a second video, because I could spend like hours like spitballing like scenarios where that plays out. I'm hoping they'll figure out what it actually is, and I'm hoping once it's actually like figured out, I can give a more focused view of it. But yeah, there's a whole slog of people trying to either figure out what it is or diffuse that one currently. Anyway, in this video, I'm mostly going to be talking about WB again. So this week, WB seems like they're doing a little bit better. They had some undeniable smash hits with Minecraft and Sinners. Minecraft 2 is being rushed into production, God help us, and we got this extremely dumb Minecraft meme party existing as a thing to try and maximize WB's profits while also maximizing theater worker misery, because WB doesn't give a shit if some minimum wage teenager at the movie theater is cleaning up like an elephant shit that 50 teenagers took in the theater. They get paid at the front door money, so it doesn't matter to them. Kinda sleazy, but you know, that's life. I will say I love the stupid way that the poster re-tiers the characters in the movie in order of importance. Like, first we got Jack Black, then we obviously got the chicken jockey who made all the money. Third we got Garbage Man who paid for the thing, and the rest. Oh, by the way, I also finally saw Sinners last week in a double back-to-back feature with Thunderbolts, and I actually really liked it. I think the main thing going against it is it's kind of a light horror movie when it might have done better as a PG-13 movie, if like that was a thing. Otherwise, it's a really crazy, well-rounded movie. I was a little bit worried it was just going to be a better version of Dusk Till Dawn, but it's more like a high-concept, crazy reconstruction of Dusk Till Dawn. If anything, it felt like Ryan Coogler is just continuing to make a true thematic sequel to Black Panther that continues that movie's general conceptualization of Black grief and the lack of ownership in America. Anyway, back to WB. So there's this new article on Screen Rant claiming that there is extreme pressure building on James Gunn's Superman, and overall, that's probably a bad thing. So yeah, the long story short is there's a lot riding on the James Gunn Superman reboot right out the gate. There's arguably a pretty vocal butthurt Snyder Cut group of diehards who at bare minimum are just going to boycott the movie because they're annoyed that Snyder's Justice League didn't get properly finished in its long format story. But then there's the overall weirdness that James Gunn rebooted the DCU while stretching it to say, well, except my movies still count in this new universe, which is kind of a shitty thing to do, especially since Peacemaker is still going as a TV show. But I guess it makes sense that that's the only way he can like preserve the reality of like what's still in play. Because everyone remembers how Peacemaker tied into Black Adam and all those other movies. Anyway, on the other hand, I do think James did an amazing job for Marvel with Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, so I do think Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is the best movie he's ever made in his entire career. And anyway, so yeah, he's been at DC lately. Creature Commandos came and went. That was okay. It had a lot of cool hardcore moments. It had a lot of nice mic drops. I'm glad G.I. Robot survived the show to become a meme. Creature Commandos was like a C-list show. It ironically suffered by just not making a group of random monsters come together in the way the Guardians of the Galaxy did. So it was only kind of mostly a story about the Bride of Frankenstein and her poor friend Nina. Anyway, back to Superman. I could see a reality where Superman works out. I'm just a little bit skeptical. I do think I'll enjoy the movie. I think I'll think it's going to be an okay movie just from where I'm at with the trailer right now. But there's so many external factors building against Superman right now, from the fact that seemingly America is poised to go into a recession in July, which will be a disaster, to controversial casting choices in the leads, and the fact that a lot of people have already probably decided that they're just never going to see a Superman movie at all this point because he's a corny character from the 1930s. And then compounding all that is James Gunn has decided that this movie is a retelling of All-Star Superman, a particular goofy Superman story from like ancient 2005 that, in my opinion, is one of the worst Superman reboots you could have picked. That one really leaned into the stupidest and weirdest aspects of the mythos, and just personally, I really disliked that one. So while I can see definitely Gunn embracing that because he loves stupid, quirky shit like that, and that gives him a lot of material to work with, I'm kind of worried though that for broad audiences, it's just going to be too weird and too corny. But maybe that's where he thrives, and maybe that will lead him to success. Who knows? Anyway, so the Screen Rant article paints a mixed picture. On the one hand, they're pretty much like, oh, everyone loved Crypto the Superdog. This movie is entirely going to make bank based on Crypto the Superdog. Crypto the Superdog for the win. It will forecast a profit. But meanwhile, they're also pretty clear here that there's so much pressure built on this movie at this point that according to them, if Superman fails, it's basically tied into the continued existence of Warner Brothers as a whole. I previously had been told from leaks that if Superman failed, it would cause WB to just give up on DC entirely and sell them to another company. But according to Screen Rant today, the new data here is that apparently Zaslav is so desperate now that he might entirely jettison WB as a company at this entire point, which is a really bad thing because whoever takes it over will probably only keep a couple of the big names spinning like Superman and Batman and Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes, but I don't know, everything else will fall apart and go away. Like, it really depends on how the studio gets split up and in some cases dissected. I think based on the current state of it, it's safe to say we'll probably get continued DC movies and like other things that are big. Like, we'll probably still get Game of Thrones, I guess, but you know, all that other good stuff like Cartoon Network and DC itself might like collapse and get like entirely dissected into turmoil. Like, I don't know, maybe there'd be like a reality where like Hulu or Disney has like a new season of Dexter's Lab and that's it. All the other shows are like forgotten. Anyway, speaking of forgotten Cartoon Network cartoons, I think that's a good enough segue to the main thing I wanted to talk about in this video today, which is Learning and Pibby is back in the news. Unfortunately, not for any good reason. Learning with Pibby is still very much a dead, canceled show. Unfortunately, it's back in the news because former showrunner, creator Dodge Greenlee basically had a very public and very sad mental breakdown this week on Instagram. So yeah, Dodge Greenlee apparently not doing great this week. There's definitely an alternate universe where Pibby got made and he became a millionaire, but that's not the reality we live in. The reality is Pibby didn't get made. He got fired from Adult Swim because he wasn't doing anything. The last update I knew about this guy was about a year ago. He apparently teamed up with some of the people from Glitch Techs. Glitch Techs, another brilliant show that got horribly fucked over by corporate meddling. I miss you, Glitch Techs girl. Anyway, yeah, so they all got together and they put together a newsletter website called Chortle, www.chortle.blog, where for $5 a month, they make random silly webcomics and they just send them to you. It's kind of like a Patreon, but they are obligated to make these nonsense webcomics. I don't know, from what I saw, the webcomics were mildly amusing. So they brag that they have just over 1,000 subscribers now, so I guess it's pulling in $5,000 a month. I hope that's enough money for at least 2 people to live on, unless it's more than 2 people, in which case it might be in the red. Anyway, long story short, Dodge Greenlee never achieved like financial stability, and this week in Instagram, he revealed a several page long like post of sadness that the journey to trying to get Pibby to greenlight and failing was apparently, in his words, like getting punched in the soul every week. He revealed that despite Adult Swim not picking up the show, he shopped it to some other networks. I'm guessing probably Netflix and Nickelodeon. But despite all the views, despite the fact it won 3 awards, absolutely no one is picking up original content right now just because of instability in the American economy. So he states that the entire ordeal put him into such deep depression that he had to see a psychiatrist. And it was so hard to talk about that he couldn't even like talk about the show for a very long time. But now he's trying to move on and trying to put an end to the Pibby story. And it's a really, really sad read, you guys. Like, honestly, Pibby could have been a really special show. It could have been like this super Cartoon Network crossover battle for adults. But hearing what overall Dodge went through is really, really heart-wrenching. I just can't imagine like getting so far with your project just to be told no when you got to like the peak of the mountain. I know for one thing that Pibby got killed because it had these weird corruptions of popular IP, which it could get away with in the trailer apparently, but no one seemed okay with like letting that exist in a real show. There were too many lawyers and like people to like fight back on stuff. Like, I know one of the reports was that for the pilot episode of Pibby, they were going to have a big fight with Yosemite Sam, who was reimagined as sort of a gun devil character. Gun devil. Why is it phrased like that? Is that a Chainsaw Man reference? Anyway, I hope he continues to do well, and I'm glad he knows that many people loved his work and were super behind his idea to make the show. And it's a real shame that for everything it could have been, it never ended up being anything. I'm glad we at least got the pilot trailer at least, because that was a cool pilot trailer. But yeah, overall, this is fundamentally depressing because Dodge had his big break and he never got his big break. So he's still a struggling artist who never became a big player on the stage. Despite working his way up from being a storyboarder on like major shows like SpongeBob and like writing some other cartoons, at the end of the day, he's still a struggling animator like the rest of us. So yeah, my heart goes out to the guy. I think if there's one lesson to take from Pibby and Glitch Text and some of these other shows, you never know when a network is going to stab your idea to death, so be careful if there's something you really care about with all your heart. Don't sell something like that carelessly. Like, I have a lot of big ideas that I would sell to the networks, but at the same time, no one's ever getting Mutant Busters. I don't want network notes on that. I don't want anyone stopping me, so I'm just going to finish Mutant Busters myself, and that way it's uncorrupted. By the way, speaking of Mutant Busters, I still don't have enough money to continue production of Mutant Busters Episode 2. If anyone wants to donate to my Patreon, that would be awesome. Right now, I need $6,000 minimum in the bank to restart production, and I'm trying to save up to that, but I'm unemployed, so I don't think that's coming anytime soon. I am working on something in the meantime that will hopefully keep the Mutant Busters alive with what resources I have available, so stay tuned to that. Hopefully that turns out interesting. All right, I'm Mutant Buster Green. That's where everything's at with Warner Brothers and cartoon industry right now. Yeah, fun week. Later, guys.